The Agenda with Steve Paikin is presented by Vale Inco Limited, a pioneering nickel mining company transforming mineral resources into essential ingredients for everyday life. Ontario's 33,000 chartered accountants, public policy leaders since 1879. More information is available at casforchange.ca.
And joining us now on the debate in New York, Anna Neistat, senior researcher with Human Rights Watch. And here in studio, David Poopalapillai, national spokesperson for the Canadian Tamil Congress. Asoka Yapa, past chair of the Project Peace for a United Sri Lanka. R. Cheran, Tamil-Canadian academic and writer. And Lenin Benedict of the Canadian Democratic Tamil Cultural Association. I will start this discussion the way I always do by welcoming everybody to the program, both around this table and Anna to you in New York as well. I do also want to do a couple of other things, and that is to acknowledge that I have received an unusually high number of emails in anticipation of this program from people who knew this discussion was coming. And I guess it is to those people that I want to address in particular to say, if I had taken every suggestion that was given, there would not be 5 people on this program tonight, there would be 50. If I were to ask every question that was suggested to be asked over the course of the next 35 minutes or so, we would need about 3 days, not 35 minutes. So it is with all of that in place that I say we will do our best to cover what we can tonight. We obviously will not be able to cover it all, but we will do our best. Having said that, let us bring these maps up if we can start, because we want to show the state of play as it exists in Sri Lanka. We're going to start with where things were back in 2005. The orange areas suggest the areas that the Tamil Tigers were essentially in control of. This is 4 years ago. Let's fast forward to today, and that's the map of Sri Lanka today. That very small area, about the size of Manhattan Island, 60 square kilometers in the top part of the screen, that's all that's left of what the Tamil Tigers control. And I guess that's why many observers are saying this thing is not long for us. The civil war will soon be over. Asoka Yapa, is that fair to say? Will this thing soon be over, given the realities on the ground?
I think so, because the area that they control is so small right now and they are surrounded by the army from the land side, the navy from the water side. They have nowhere to go, and I think the best thing is for them to surrender, give up their arms. As soon as that happens, the conflict is over.
Let me get David's view on that.
That's not right. You showed the orange area. Prior to independence, before colonial powers came, the orange area was much bigger. There were 2 nations in the country, Steve. That was a Tamil nation and Sinhala nation. Both were independently ruled. Only the colonial powers.
That's not what I'm talking about. Let's talk about the question that was posed, which is this civil war almost over? Because the facts on the ground suggest it.
Not at all, not at all. The root cause is not being addressed until the Sinhala governments start addressing the root cause. It will never be over.
Lenin, your view?
I don't need to give an explanation because you see with your own eyes. The world knows. It's a matter of days. Their days are numbered, and it is going to be a very few days you will hear the very good news that terrorism is eradicated from Sri Lankan soil.
Okay, I think we're all getting our views pretty clearly on the record here. R. Cheran, what is your view?
Well, we have seen this kind of thing happening before in 1989 and the early 1990. And then the issue of territory is one aspect of the entire Tamil struggle. You know, I would rather argue that it is the question of politics of recognition of the Tamil people. So it has not been addressed. So the issue of territory is one simple aspect. You know, it can come and go. In the course of several years before, Tigers have controlled territories. The Sri Lankan government has controlled territories. Territories have been exchanged. You know, it's going up and down. So it is extremely difficult to argue that by the fact that the Sri Lankan army controlled most of the territory, that the conflict is over. I do not think so.
But there are other aspects which we shall get to. Anna, let me bring you in at this point, because I think you were over there just a couple of weeks ago, and I wonder if you could give us a kind of your sense of how things are on the ground from what you saw.
Yes, indeed. I returned from Sri Lanka about 2 weeks ago, and what I saw on the ground can probably best be described as a humanitarian disaster. And when I say humanitarian disaster, I refer both to those people who are trapped in this tiny area that you just described, but also those who managed to escape. In the conflict area, civilians definitely, well, most likely more than 200,000 of them are trapped between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, LTT does not allow them to leave, and we documented several cases when LTT forces shot at people who were trying to flee the area.
This is just so I'm clear. And Tamil Tiger people fired at Tamils in order to prevent them from leaving. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, and that's one of the greatest problems right now when we're advocating for humanitarian corridors for allowing civilians to leave. LTT is a big part of the problem. They do not allow civilians to leave. They do not want civilians to leave, largely because, and again, these are some of the cases that we personally documented, when LTT used civilians as so-called human shields to protect their positions from attack. They placed their positions in front of the camps of the displaced persons near the hospitals. So, and this is, plainly speaking, a war crime.
Okay, let me get some feedback to that here in Toronto for a second. David, you need to speak to
yes,
that.
what we hear is a different story from the ground. We hear the deep penetration units of the Sri Lankan army. They wear uniforms like LTT. They go into the areas. They are shooting at civilians. They are putting the blame on the Tigers. That's what we hear. But we respect HRW. It's a great organization. But first of all, we have to understand they are not on the ground. They went up to Vavuniya. They heard the evidence from Vavuniya where the illegal detention camps, internment camps are being operated. People are so scared to tell the true story.
Okay, and let me hear from Anna. Anna, is his explanation possible?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I think, I assume Tamils can tell a Sri Lankan soldier from an LTT cadre. And the accounts we got were definitely not from Sinhalese propaganda. They were from people who were trapped in these areas, who themselves tried to flee, or who lost family or neighbors in these kind of incidents.
Okay, Lenin, do you have any reason to suspect Human Rights Watch's report on this?
Of course, actually, it's very clearly she has said. It's been, even the United Nations has given a very clear statement. It says, the LTT continues to actively prevent people leaving, and reports indicate that a growing number of people trying to leave have been shot and sometimes killed. It's not my wording. It is the United Nations has issued a press statement.
Okay.
So
Asoka,
that's very clearly
having said
understood.
that, okay, understood. Having said that, the Sri Lankan government is not agreeing to a ceasefire right now, even though there are all these tens of thousands of citizens who are trapped in this area. Why won't they do that?
Well, let me take you back to just earlier this month. There was a 48-hour period that the Sri Lankan government stopped offensive activities. The response and asked the LTTE to allow the civilians to leave so that they won't be in the range of any conflict. The response of the LTTE was scorn. They said basically nothing. They just poured scorn on the proposal, so the government has tried to get these people to safe areas. And also, the reason the government will not countenance another ceasefire is because 6 ceasefires have already been instituted. Every time, what the LTTE does is they use that period to rearm, reorganize.
Okay, let me get Cheran on that. Is that your understanding of it?
Well, no, I think the gentleman was factually incorrect, because the government did not announce the 48-hour ceasefire.